And we're on. This is 3 Yards Per Carry. I'm Alfredo Arteaga. Chris Kaufman is not here. He's in a meeting. With who? I can't tell you. But I do have Simon Clancy, and we'll have plenty to talk about on this episode. We will preview Dolphins, Falcons in the second half of the show. Maybe we touch on a little bit on it in the first half. But for the most part, we got a lot to talk about. We have some Dolphins mismanagement. We have mafia talk. We have character talk coming out of the draft. Something I thought about when reading on this Chauncey Billups story. Quinnen Williams. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. But the first thing we have to talk about is 305-800-PAIN. After an accident, your first move should be to call 305-800-PAIN. Better Business Bureau accredited with an A+ rating. Your car accident, personal injury specialist. Fast connections with trusted doctors and attorneys. As always, take your call. They're ready to take your call at 305-800-PAIN, 305-800-PAIN, 24/7. They never sleep. So 305-800-PAIN. And let me give some special thanks to govee.com. Go to govee.com. This week on our Discord, OnlyFans, and you could become a member just by looking right there under my name, discord.gg/OnlyFans. You become a member there, all access for $4.99 a month. Do it on a desktop to avoid the Apple upcharges. But we'd like to thank govee.com. Again, go to their website, govee.com. They provided us with 3 pairs of club seats. And I understand, I get all the jokes. Like, yeah, we had to pay people to take these tickets. Yeah, we get all the jokes. Okay. All right. But we give away 3 pairs on our Discord, OnlyFans. So we encourage you to join us on there for the Dolphin Talk. God knows there's going to be a lot to talk about this coming off season. Anyway, all right, Simon, what did you make of this story this morning? Because I wanted to ask you a couple of questions on this. Anything similar to this? I think I vaguely remember something pretty big happening in Europe. But this is a pretty big one. The Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier story. And it reminds me of something that I posted on Discord. And I know Chauncey Billups is now in his 50s or whatever he is. But Chauncey Billups coming out had character concerns coming out in the draft. And everybody was like, oh, this was a top 5 talent that went later on in the draft. And everyone's like, oh, he hangs with the wrong crowd. A year into his career, he was caught up in a sexual assault allegation. And the Celtics traded him. He then rehabilitated himself into some type of statesman and Hall of Fame worthy player to the point where when he retired, everybody's like, this is a hot coaching commodity. And yet it turns out it was all a fraud for 20 something odd years. It was all a fraud. What do you make of this story with Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier and company?
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I saw it, anytime you have the mafia connected to it, that's pretty, that's about as big as he gets, especially when it comes to, illegal gambling and extortion and wire fraud. And yeah, I mean, and the fact that it's been going on for so long, I noted that, many, many years across 11 different states, a lot of people arrested. Yeah, I mean, look, we're not going to sit here and prejudice anything or, but it doesn't look great. And I suspect there's going to be some people going to prison, especially when your, wiretap has you saying things you absolutely shouldn't be saying. So especially when it comes to, rigging poker games in places like Vegas and New York and Miami and the Hamptons and all those things. And yeah, I mean, the fact that they're putting themselves out there as former professional athletes or current coaches or whatever to play high rollers in a rigged poker game is, yeah, that is pretty special.
And what a scheme, right? Like I think the people that come off looking the best in all of this is the mafia, right? Like that's such a great scheme, right? Like if you have a lot of money, Simon, and you're a fan of the Detroit Pistons in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? And they tell you, you're invited to play in this high stakes poker game with Chauncey Billups, you're going. There's like, there's no if, ands, or buts about it. Like you're going. And then he is in on a scheme to rob you.
Yeah, I mean, two things come out for me.
Insane.
I don't know if you saw this. One victim lost 1.8 million, which I thought was astonishing. But I don't know if you read this far, but do you know what the FBI's investigation into this is called?
What is it called?
The sports gambling part. So obviously there's two. There's the sports gambling and the poker investigation. The poker investigation is called Operation Royal Flush.
Of
The
course.
sports gambling investigation is called Operation Nothing But Net, which is fantastic. Whoever started that off at the FBI needs a raise.
Yeah.
But like they were doing this, like the poker game stuff was like they were using like specially altered shuffling machines to read cards in the deck and then relaying that information to like an offsite operator who was known as the quarterback, who was then sending that information into an earpiece to somebody at the table. But they were also like using poker chip trays that read cards through hidden cameras, special contact lenses and glasses that people were wearing that could read marked cards through the, you know, like what's that film with Mel Gibson? What is it called? What Women Want, where he just wakes up and he can literally see through people's clothes and stuff. It's that kind of business. X-ray poker tables that can read cards face down. So the whole thing going on. So yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. What did you make of ESPN pulling all of their gambling ads today to talk about this today?
Yeah, well, I mean, it won't be too long until they're back up, surely. I mean, you know.
I try to tell people, and I posted this on Twitter. Look, you can gamble. Like nobody's telling you can't gamble. God knows it's easily as accessible to anybody. We have sponsors on the show, and I'll tell you one. I'll tell you about one later on in the show. Like you can gamble, and I made a few bets this morning based on tonight's game because I think tonight's game is kind of interesting. Vikings Chargers is going to be, I think, a lot of fun. It's Brian Flores versus Justin Herbert. That's always fun. So I'll be watching, and I'll have a little action on it. You know what I'm not doing? I'm not colluding with the mafia to rob people.
I mean, it won't be long until ESPN and NBA YouTube will be reporting this story and then turning around immediately doing spots for DraftKings and FanDuel and see zero irony there. So
yeah, you know, but is it as simple as these guys just get indebted? And there's just no other way out.
Like playing cards. Why didn't he like poker?
Right? Yeah, like this never happens to us.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe we could just call the FBI, call Cash Patel and say, look, Christopher Greer in Miami, he sure he was involved in some of those poker.
Yeah, you know, and it is Miami, of course. You know?
It is Miami, of course.
Yeah, I forget I think it was Billy Corbin when he said that Miami, of course Miami is connected somehow to this thing, but he said Miami only produces two things: great Cuban food and fraud. It's what we're good at down here, Simon. Especially Medicare fraud. Like
it's not football.
No, we're not good at football. Forget football. Okay, we're not good at that. We're good at hockey somehow. You know. Oh wow. But yeah, what a story, and it's getting much more involved. Other side of the story, and I think we can move on after this. The Terry Rozier part is an odd one. He's essentially just giving out tips for money to gamblers, and they have him on tape.
Yeah. Get used to bending over and coughing.
Yeah.
Would be my advice.
Yeah. Has anything similar to that? Has that happened in Europe? Because I vaguely remember reading things about that.
Sorry, say that again.
Has something like this ever happened in Europe?
Yeah. So in the 90s, there was a big betting scandal involving footballers before the Premier League started. Was it before the Premier League started? I mean, there was a Premier League before it was called the Premier League. Premier League just became the name of it. But there was a couple of goalkeepers, Bruce Grobbelaar and Hans Seegers and John Fashanu were involved. And then I think probably the most famous one is there's a very famous Australian cricketer called Hansi Cronje who was involved in match fixing. I mean, match fixing in cricket is, I mean, I'm not slandering anybody, but you know, it has a notorious history because it's far more difficult to match fix in soccer in a game that involves 22 other people or 21 other people, you know, and a ball that flies everywhere as it is.
Unless you buy the keeper.
And so two of those people, those names that I mentioned, Grobbelaar and Seegers, were both goalkeepers. and the handshake on your cricket thing has been, that was kind of Indian bookmakers and lots of kind of recorded conversations, the police in Delhi and whatever, kind of whole extortion and all sorts of things with Cronje talking about taking money to essentially throw cricket matches and stuff. So yeah, it was and then a massive court case, a huge court case that happened, and then Cronje bizarrely died in a plane crash in 2002 during the inquiry. Just a small sort of light airplane that crashed in, I think, in Johannesburg. So I said he was Australian, he's South African, sorry, but yeah, it was. I think they're probably the two biggest in this country.
Yeah,
or in this part of the world.
Yeah, oddly enough, in this country, there hasn't been that many boxing scandals as far as gambling, although it's been known forever that there's been cheating in boxing. Like, that's obvious.
Yeah,
and you get the weird decisions all the time, but there's never been like a gambling scandal. But Sugar Ray Robinson, very famously before he died, revealed he had fixed he had thrown 8 fights because the mafia told him to.
I think that when Terry Rozier tweeted Osama bin Laden should have hooped instead of trying to kill people because he tall as hell, I think that should have garnered him enough credit to be kept out of prison, frankly. But
yeah. What a strange 2 years it's been for Terry Rozier. Think about it. Heat fans, the Heat trade for Terry Rozier, and at the time it seems like a good idea. He becomes a terrible player. Little did we know he became a terrible player because he had all of this hanging over him.
Yeah.
Like he knew, like, I'm going to prison. I don't care about playing basketball. So I don't care. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to be bad.
X-ray tables and
unbelievable. And the NBA, of course, it's a bad look for the NBA because they cleared Terry Rozier of.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, of any wrongdoing.
All right.
Because they did suspend. The NBA has suspended other players for gambling, which I don't get. Like, there was I forget which player it was that was suspended because he placed a parlay wager of $1,200.
Right.
Right. The player makes like $18 million a year.
Right.
Like, and the thing is, I you've been in locker rooms, okay?
Yeah.
So you've seen it. There's a giant sign. You cannot miss it. Okay. Okay.
I mean, let's say he gets 5 years, Rozier. He will be, I would say, in 6 years' time, he'll be managing Bada Bing in New Jersey, some kind of strip club. So,
yeah. I think that. I think that's what they're going for too. Like, they want jail time for this. Like, they got to make an example of him. You know what I mean? He's a professional athlete affecting games.
When it involves La Cosa Nostra,
whenever in the indictment it says 4 of the 5 families, that's a problem.
That is a problem because you're going to screw somebody over,
right? So. At least it explains his poor play, right? It explains his poor play for 2 years,
Of course.
So, all right, we're going to talk Dolphins, Falcons. Let's just touch on this before we go to break. Dolphins restructured or reworked Jordan Brooks' contract. Turns out that it's not because they're working on some scheme to trade somebody. They were actually over the cap, and now they're only $800,000 in the clear. The mismanagement of this team just knows no bounds. It's, and if you pay attention to some of these things, it kind of means that Jordan Brooks is probably a Dolphin next year because now you're adding more dead cap. So he's one of the good ones. He's a good egg.
He's a good player. So.
He's a good player, but you're taking away more versatility, more flexibility from a season that they're going to need plenty of it. Because you mismanaged the cap.
Yeah, again.
I mean,
the really what I thought when it happened was essentially 3 things. Are they trading somebody else, and need some wiggle room? Are they trading Brooks and cutting down his salary so that teams see him as a more viable proposition? Not the cap was huge. And then it became pretty clear, and our friend Carl Crabbs actually confirmed it. Became pretty clear. The Dolphins, I mean, 714,318 pounds of cap room that now they have above their cap ceiling, which is the lowest in the league. I mean, yes, it's spurred on in large part by, the third most amount of 2025 salary cap commitments on players on reserve lists due to injury. But if you look at the teams above them, the Bengals is one, and that's because of Joe Burrow, and the 49ers is another, and that's because of Brock Purdy. So, and then it's us. What's our excuse? Yes, Tyreek. Yeah. I mean, come on. That is ridiculous. So, just the mismanagement is, it's gross. I know we laugh about it, but it really is gross. And, yet another reason, if reasons were needed, as to why things have to change, and not just a little change. It has to be completely, rip it all up and start again. Sell the team or hand the team on to the Stillman guy that we've been talking about, and let's just do this properly, and let's just try and fix this. And
to add proper context to this, if some disgruntled player out there, whoever it may be, who is a veteran, who's a vested veteran, gets released, Miami would not have the cap space to sign him for the balance of the season.
Right.
So, not that we would want him, but like say a Chauncey Gardner Johnson type, something like that. Miami could not afford him for the balance of the season.
Crazy, isn't it?
That's awful mismanagement of this team. All right, we're going to go to break. But before we do, let me tell you about Underdog. Football season is in full swing, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right, and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. Now, for tonight, Herbert and Wentz. I kind of like Herbert over or higher than 23.5 completions, and I like Carson Wentz higher than 32.5 attempts. So, oddly enough, Carson Wentz has thrown the ball more than 45 times twice in the last 3 weeks. So, I feel good about that, and I feel good about the Chargers' short passing game behind Justin Herbert getting us a score here tonight. So, download the app today. Sign up with the promo code 3YARDS to score $100 in bonus funds or bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code 3YARDS, the number 3YARDS. Underdog. Make picks, win money.
Be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
And we are back. And the irony is not lost on us, but I don't talk to the mafia, and I don't give tips, and I'm not a professional athlete, and I'm not giving tips to gamblers. Okay, so we're in the clear. Dolphins Falcons this week. God help us, Bijan Robinson is who they're gonna face. Some of their numbers, and Omar Kelly provided some of these numbers, and I understand people keep saying, passer rating's antiquated, except that there's like a 40-year track record of telling you who sucks and who doesn't suck based on passer rating differential. Miami's almost dead last in what they're giving up, and God knows that the quarterback hasn't been good, so he's also underwater. It's almost impossible. And I looked it up. Over the last 40 years, a negative passer rating differential has not yielded one single above 500 season. So naturally, they are where they are. There's literally nothing good that this team has produced. And now they're going to face, I guess Michael Penix Jr. is a little banged up. So maybe they get a little help in that regard. But what's the alternative? Who's his backup?
Kirk Cousins.
Oh, God. Okay, we're screwed.
I mean, the thing to me is that that two-headed monster, I think it's the best 1-2 running back punch outside of Montgomery and Gibbs in the NFL. Bijan and Tyler Algier, who I think is just a really good player who doesn't get nearly the pub that he should do. And they've got good skill position players when you look at Drake London and Darnell Mooney and Carl Pitts, and the offensive line is decent with Chris Lindstrom, arguably one of the best guards in the league, or not even arguably, really. Jake Matthews playing really well, as always. And then I suppose the thing that they've added to that defense now, and I think we all like Jeff Ulbrich, but the things they've added to that defense is pass rush, which is the one thing they've not had, whether that's with Caden Ellis, blitzing inside, whether that's Arnold Ebikite, whether that's Leonard Floyd, obviously historically, Jalen Walker's beginning to rack up plays, James Pierce Jr., they're getting after it. And then also through the middle, David Onyemata, Rook or Rook, the kid from Clemson, or Zach Harrison was making plays last week in the game that they played on Sunday night against the 49ers. And then arguably their best defensive player this season has been Divine Diablo, the middle linebacker, who's just everywhere. And he just allows them to do so much. And he obviously got injured very early against the 49ers, and they really missed him. JD Bertrand came in and they kind of struggled. They weren't able to control the middle of that defense against Christian McCaffrey and that 49ers line. And McCaffrey kind of ran wild a little bit. So, and then even on the back end, AJ Terrell, historically one of the most underrated players in the entire league, an all-pro corner. Xavier Watts had a great start to the season, a guy I know you really like coming out. Jesse Bates, really good player. So it's a good team. And actually, I think, outside of, I think they struggle a little bit in the passing game, in part because whilst I like some of the guys, Mooney is a decent player. Drake London, obviously a really good player. They kind of feels like they're one player short. And Penix hasn't quite, he's a little bit reticent to work into the middle of the field, which is weird because it's what he did a lot at Washington. But I think it's a good team who could, I just keep giving the ball to Bijan and Algier until the Dolphins can stop them, which they won't be able to. So, it's that's a good team, well coached. Obviously, Raheem Morris and Mike McDaniel have got a lot of history having coached together. Historically. So, it will be a tough game for a team that can't play, that is 32nd in the league in run against the run, knowing that you've got that two-headed monster coming in.
Yeah, the only saving grace that Miami has in this game, and the only case that you can make for the game to be entertaining, is that for whatever reason, Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa have had success against Jeff Ulbrich. Yet, and I'm talking about real success, averaging well more than 30 points a game and passer ratings of 110. So they've had big success against Jeff Ulbrich. Then again, it could be because they were playing against pretty bad Jets offenses that were helping them along with short fields. So it could be any of those things. Jeff Ulbrich is a guy that if he became available and Mike McDaniel somehow was still here, he would be the most obvious to bring on as a DC. But then again, why would you book a passage on the Titanic, right? If you think it's not for long, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what did you make of Anthony Weaver's comments? I don't know if you saw them today. He went to bat for essentially everybody on the team. Everybody, he's coaching a defense that's bad, but he doesn't want to trade anybody.
Well, he went to bat, except that he said that, he admitted that Chop Robinson's had a very up and down year, not the production we want from a pass rush standpoint, significant inconsistency in the run game that he has to clean up, which is all fair and all true. He says, I love the kid, but we've got to get it fixed. He wants to do right so bad, he puts himself into vulnerable positions. He said that Kenneth Grant was overweight. He didn't say those words specifically, but he was asked whether or not his weight and body fat is where the Dolphins want it. Oh, actually, that was Austin Clark. And he said, well, I wouldn't say exactly it's where we want him to be, which is kind of telling. But I think the interesting thing for me was trying to work out how Dante Trader went from playing a hell of a load of snaps against the Chargers to not a single snap against Cleveland. But Weaver insisted that he was banged up. The team didn't want to put him at risk. And his shoulder issue continues to be a problem. They're going to rotate Bonner and Jack Jones again. And then Jason Marshall, obviously, it comes into that window, and he said that it will allow them to move Minkah Fitzpatrick back to safety. So we shall see. But it's not great.
No, well, nothing is great. Nothing
No,
is great. Yeah,
It's very
I like
humble.
the honesty from these coaches, though. Like they get up there, they're completely honest, while the rest of the league lies at their press conferences. Our guys are just putting everything out there
I think
for
we have to
everybody
stop
to
doing
see.
that. Like even like Tua got some, the flack he got the other day was unwarranted for what he said about not being able to see over the line. The point is that if the Dolphins were 7-1, everybody would laugh it off and it'd be a really funny thing. But because it's we're 1-6, and because over the last couple of weeks he said some dumb things, these sorts of things then get magnified. It's just like shut it all down. Don't say anything, or just say, look, I'm working really hard behind the scenes. We're excited. We're this. We're still with the coach. Whatever. Don't come out and say, I wish I could have thrown to Jalen Waddle, but I'm so small I can't see him. Even if you said that before, when you're doing well, do not say it now when the team's playing shitty, because that just exacerbates the whole issue. And 95% of the studio shows will not have heard him say that way back when the Dolphins were winning. But obviously it becomes magnified now. When you're losing, you're playing badly, you're throwing 3 picks, you've thrown your teammates under the bus and had to publicly apologize for it. To turn around then and say, I'm too small to hit our number one receiver because I can't see over the line. Just be smarter. Like, it's not a story, but just be smarter,
Yeah. And also maybe elaborate a little bit more and not speak in like short sound bites. Like obviously he was coached because he made the joke about not throwing picks in bunches.
which was a kind of a funny little thing with him and Omar Kelly.
And by the way, it's absolutely a thing. Like I think 100% of his interceptions all come like in 20% of his games. Whenever he throws interceptions, they're coming. Like I think the only game where you could say he actually played really, really well and he threw more than one interception was the Ravens game, where he threw for 469 and 6 touchdowns. But he had 2 picks early on in that game, if you remember.
Yeah, so, he did.
Yeah. Brock Purdy also had said something similar to that, but he elaborated on it. He said, 40% of the time I can't see over the line. So I'm trusting the play call and where I'm going with the football. And Kurt Warner said something interesting, and I wonder what you think about this, that he looks at Tua as somebody who's lost complete trust, like in the system.
Well, I think he's lost trust. I think he's lost control. Like he clearly doesn't want to throw to Nick Westbrook-Ikine. I mean, I just don't think he's clearly been hit too many times. Like the throw across the middle to Westbrook-Ikine that he had, a sort of, he could have stepped into that throw and driven it into him, and he didn't, and it went over his head. And yes, there was a pass rush, but I just think he's so jittery now, and so he's lost confidence in himself, probably in the system. He's probably not getting on particularly well with Matt McDaniel. The pressure, he can't not hear the noise of what's happening. He knows his time in Miami is pretty much over. So
it's not great.
I mean, Teron Armstead says, I see a lack of confidence and an inability to trust teammates, and I think that's probably fair.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at Brock Purdy's comments about pretty much the same thing, and then you look at Tua's comments, it's pretty clear what's going on here. Brock Purdy actually trusts the system because he's saying 40% of the time I don't see where I'm throwing the football, but I'm trusting the play call and the system and my teammates. And it's almost like Tua is not believing what he's seeing and then is double clutching. And double clutching with this offensive line is a recipe for absolute disaster.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened to him. Interesting thing, 49ers are winning. Mac Jones did not play particularly great last week. All of these other coaches have serious injuries issues. Like if you look at, and I'm talking about the Shanahan tree, Sean McVay has had serious injury issues this year. They're starting to come back healthy. They're winning. This is the only.
They've got a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, but
still playing at a really high. He's still Matthew Stafford is still a top 5 quarterback in the league. And,
he's great. He's great.
That's why they're winning. They've got a good running game.
But San Francisco's winning, and Mac Jones has played 2 poor games in the 4 that he started, and they won both of them, by the way. But even when things were going good for Miami, Mike McDaniel could never overcome just any injury, really. Like one or two injuries would completely derail him. What has been the difference, you think? Like,
Well, the
we
Rams have
just
got a
got the
Hall of
wrong
Fame.
one. We just got the wrong one off of the
Yeah, I
Shanahan
mean,
tree.
the Rams have got a Hall of Fame quarterback, and they had a Hall of Fame interior defensive lineman, and they've now got a great defensive line, and they still have the Hall of Fame quarterback. The 49ers have still, historically had, I know they're injured at the moment, but historically have had, great defensive linemen when it comes to, Nick Bosa and guys like that. So Fred Warner, that's really helped. And on the offensive line, again, historically, really good players, led by continually the best offensive tackle in the league in Trent Williams, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. So, there is a reason that these things happen, and it's down to the thing that we've never done, which is fix the trenches properly. We've never done it properly, and we've never done it consistently enough. And we invested in the wrong things. We invested, and I don't blame them for doing it. They took a young head coach with offensive sparkles in his eyes to try and recreate that kind of Rams, and it almost worked. It did almost work, but it didn't work, and it's failed. And the teams have worked it out, and the system will now no longer work as it is. And whether Mike McDaniel survives that and can recreate the system with Ty Simpson or Mendoza remains to be seen, but it's not going to work moving forwards with Tua. And so what they've got to do now is try and, if they do draft a quarterback, they've got to try and rework a system with that quarterback so as not to get him killed or, have him become David Carr. And if they don't draft a quarterback, then they've got to really, really fill out that defensive line. They need a quick three technique who can play alongside Grant, who can help free up Sealer, who's still going to be there because of his contract. They need, edge rushers because Bradley Chubb is done. Jalen Phillips probably won't be here because of the history of the injuries, and he struggled this year. And Chuck Robinson's been awful. So that throws into the Reuben Bain. Is that Peter Woods? I mean, Peter Woods is the Clemson DT. I mean, there's a lot of similarities to Christian Wilkins there. And then obviously the offensive line needs fixing. And we've obviously got the left tackle. The center is really good, although he struggles against big guys. And then the other three positions are up for grabs. And just because Jonas Savanaugh was a second round pick, I don't think automatically means he should be playing because he's been uniquely dreadful. The right guard situation, James Daniels, we all like, but he had an Achilles injury last year and missed all the season. He's played 3 snaps this year, so you can hardly rely on him. And Austin Jackson will be gone at the end of the season because he's not very good. He's missed currently up to 35 games he's missed in the last 61, 62, something like that, which is just an astonishing number. And he's only had one season anyway of any quality, and the rest has been, kind of the epitome of mediocrity. I mean, he's pretty much Austin Jackson in a way is a microcosm of the entire Miami Dolphins over the last 5 years. Thought he might be great, not good enough, injured all the time, and kind of just epitomizes mediocrity. So they need to fix the offensive line. They need to fix the defensive line. And, if they do draft a quarterback, then there's that fine balance between not ruining that quarterback because you haven't fixed the offensive line.
Yeah, the 2024 offseason, I think it's where everything really, really went bad. And you could go back to that offseason and people are going to say, oh, but look at the successes. They found Jonnu Smith out of nowhere and Calais Campbell. Look at the rest of what they did that offseason. Because in 2023, they had a good team, okay? Number one offense, everything. We've talked about it ad nauseum. They take injuries to right guard, right tackle, left tackle. They take injuries all along the offensive line. They lose their center for the year, and they lose their right tackle for the year, okay, in 2023. And they move on to 2024. They lost all their edge rushers as well. They move on to 2024, and they did nothing at those positions. And, of course, all those positions all the problems at those positions fester for not only one season, but now 2 seasons. And you could trace it all right back to they didn't learn the lessons of 2023. Other teams do. This team didn't for whatever reason.
But also we make stupid mistakes in terms of giving people contracts that they either don't deserve or, was Austin Jackson deserving of a contract like that? I don't think so, and certainly not that high. The multiple Jalen Ramsey redos, all of those sorts of things, and we can argue till we're blue in the face about whether or not we should just let Tua play out on the 5th. And I said at the time we should have done, and unfortunately I was right, and I take no pleasure in that whatsoever. But we worship false idols a little bit, this team, and it's not worked. And there needs to be a reset that I don't think fans are going to want to appreciate, and because it's going to take an awful long time. This is not a 1-year fix. When you're having to restructure guys so you can get under the cap mid-season, that is a damning indictment. I mean, let me just get up there.
Yeah, let me explain this to people, because I've said this before. Like, teams regularly go from terrible to pretty good in one season. The Patriots are the latest example, from 4-13 to they look like a playoff team now. Dolphins themselves went from 1-15 to 11-5 and division champions in one season. But that's usually when you clean the slate. Miami's going to have a lot of trash to clean up in one season. So to see that type of miraculous turnaround is probably going to take 2 seasons no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's
at least.
So next season is a transition year, and maybe in 2027 you could be in that playoff conversation again.
I think but right. Let's say they draft a quarterback next year. Given that, unless the new general manager or Chris Greer make a revolutionary decision, which is they're just going to eat that cap and get rid of Tua, right? Unless that happens, you've got to play him, right? So you're probably not going to find out about your quarterback for a year. Maybe that's not a bad thing, right? But then Tua goes the following year. So 2027 is the first time you get to see the rookie quarterback. Realistically, he's probably not going to be a playoff bound rookie. I mean, he might be, but unless they absolutely hit, because we're not going to be able to spend big on free agents. So unless we absolutely hit on the rest of the draft class, and it's not like we're overwhelmed with picks, I think 2028 or even 2029 is the first time that you can be. Probably 2028 if you hit on the quarterback and if you get a real commitment to fixing the trenches. But let's look at this team, right? Quinn Ewers probably will be here, but who knows? Zach Wilson won't be. Tua probably will be. Achan's probably not going to get traded. Will be here. Ollie Gordon will be here. Ingold will be gone. Jalen Wright. I mean, there's talk about him being traded before this deadline. I suspect he'll be gone. Eskridge will be gone. Waddle will probably be here. Probably. The Washingtons. Malik, definitely. Not sure about Taj. Westbrook-Akina will be gone. Cedric Wilson will be gone. Tanner Connor, I mean, if he survives, it's unlikely. Dulcich probably gone. Julian Hill probably gone. I mean, maybe he stays. Hill's had a half-decent season. Bourne will be gone. Brewer's contract will be up. Brewer's contract is up next season, right?
Yeah, next season.
He'll be here. Brunskill will be probably gone. Kendall Lamb gone. Paul, obviously, will be here. Savanier will be here, but God knows where. Keon Smith, Cole Strange will be gone. Biggers, Grant, Phillips will all be here. Zach Sealer will be here almost by default because of the contract. Benito Jones will probably be gone. Butler, maybe. Britt will be gone. Charles will be gone. Colbert will be gone. Dodson is a free agent at the end of the year. Gay will be gone. Judon gone. I mean, Chubb will be gone, whether he gets traded, but he'll be gone at the end of the season. Phillips, you probably think Phillips that. I suspect they want to keep Jalen Phillips and just hope he can, second year on from the injuries. Robinson will be here. And then secondary, I mean, Brent's probably gone. Bonner probably gone. Davis probably gone. Razul probably gone. Minka probably gone. Melifonwu probably gone. Jack Jones probably gone. I mean, that is a lot of players.
Yeah, the secondary is almost a 100% rebuild.
Yeah.
100%.
Eichenberg, I mean, who the fuck knows? Daniels.
We're never getting rid of him.
Yeah. Artie Burns will be gone. Cajuste will be gone. Jalen Conyers, I think they'll probably keep around. Tyreek will be gone. Efedi will be gone. Jackson will be gone. I think they want to keep Kohu. I think they want to keep Marshall. Mattison will be gone. I mean, Jason Sanders' contract, Riley Patterson's kicked really well. Andrew Meyer might be here. Waller will be gone. Do you know what I mean? The turnover is going to be huge. And then
about 50% at least.
Yeah, at least. And then do you want to? And I think for next season, I think they're going to have to, because they won't have a choice. They're going to have to play at an almost JV level. So you look at a team that could potentially end up with back-to-back first-round picks, actually. So I think there's got to be some sort of assessment done as to, are we better, selecting a quarterback this year? And look, I'm a massive advocate of you can never tell. At this time last year, everybody was saying, Drew Aller, Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, Aller might go undrafted. Klubnik's probably a 4th or 5th rounder now. Nussmeier probably late 1, early to mid 2. But, a lot of the guys that we talked about last year being, first rounders coming into this year are not going to be. Now, next year, you might have Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers, Dante Moore, plus, Julian Sayin, a number of guys. But can you operate on a 2-year basis? Somebody's going to have to make a big decision as to what they do. Because
I do believe
Mendoza or Simpson, you don't want to ruin them.
Yeah, I do believe that you have to have the coach that's going to be here long term to select this quarterback.
Yeah, what I think you have to have is you have to have quarterback, coach and GM have to be there first, and coach has to select the quarterback that he wants or be involved in that decision.
Yeah, and if McDaniel somehow is going to survive all of this, he has to be in lockstep with the quarterback, and he has to be tied to that quarterback for his first initial start, for his first season where he starts. So 100%. So that means that he has to stick around somehow. Definitely. All right, let's talk about this game. I circled this game early on in the season. I felt this had a chance to be extremely entertaining. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to score enough points to win, even if they do score points. So and by the way, when we finish giving our picks here, I want to ask you something about the 2 guys that you have under your name there. So I think Miami will score points, but Atlanta will score more, and I have them losing. Atlanta just won't cover. They'll win by 7. I think they're 7.5-point favorites this morning. So Atlanta 34, Miami 27.
This is in Atlanta, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in Atlanta.
Yeah, 35-14 to Atlanta.
Wow. So Ulbrich finally gets over on Mike McDaniel. All right. Todd McShay, who I trust. He's been, if anybody's been paying attention, and we talk about this every year around draft time, we always want to point to who's been right, who's been wrong, who's had the bad take during draft season. Todd McShay, if we've been paying attention, has had a pretty nice run since leaving ESPN. And he's made the first big take of draft season. I don't know if you're aware of it, Simon. You've seen what he's written?
No.
He says Ty Simpson is QB1.
Yeah.
And it's not particularly close.
Yeah.
That's the part of the take that is interesting. Your thoughts on that?
Former NFC GM said the same thing to me over the last week. Dan Orlovsky tweeted that Simpson was the number 1 quarterback and it wasn't close. And what he's doing. I mean, Alabama have beaten, back to back wins, and they're doing it because of their quarterback. He's so smart. He's so smart pre-snap. He's so smart. His football IQ is fantastic. And just the throws. He's not big. He's listed at 6'2", 208. I think he's probably maybe 6'1". But he can really drive the ball. He's got a strong arm. The ball placement is just ridiculous. Anticipatory, poise, confidence. He's athletic. He's not Justin. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he can certainly pick up yards with his legs. He is. You see him rolling to the right and throwing 60 yards down the field, throwing back against his body. That is like, he's got a serious arm on him. And I think unquestionably, I mean, I think people are talking about obviously Mendoza, and he's a good player, but to me, Simpson is comfortably the most accurate intermediate pass, short intermediate pass in this class. And it's just, what you're looking for is that somebody who can do what he can do pre and post snap. And the great irony is, and this former NFL GM said to me that he reminds him of Drew Brees. And the great irony is that, here we've got an Alabama quarterback who we've talked up for 5 years about being the second coming of Drew Brees. And actually the second coming of Drew Brees might be the guy that ends up going to the New York Jets if they end up with the first pick. So, I mean, look, Simpson, what he's done has been amazing. And, it's fascinating to watch. So,
what do you think of him being like Bo Nix, but with more arm talent?
No, I think that's very unfair. I think his tape is littered with downfield throws. 35% of Bo Nix's throws at Oregon, his final 2 years, were caught behind the line of scrimmage. Simpson is not living off screens and tunnel screens and those sorts of things. He is living off downfield throws. He is living off throwing off the ball outside the numbers to the sidelines. He is a good player. He is a good player.
If the Jets do take Simpson, how do you feel about Mendoza to Miami at number 2?
I like him. I think they're both really good quarterbacks, and I think you can get behind both of them. The interesting thing about Mendoza is that he was at Cal. He played well at Cal, and he's another guy, a really, really big brain. I mean, when he was at Cal, he applied to. There's very few places he got into the Haas School of Business at Cal, which is very difficult to get into. Graduated in just 3 years. He was kind of commuting to internships in real estate businesses during training camps and stuff. And he led Cal to back-to-back bowl games, started 19 to 20 games. And I think he's, I tabbed him in the magazine I work for over here preseason as a guy that I thought would go in the first round. I actually had him as the first quarterback in the magazine. Kurt Signetti's system helps quarterbacks in a way. But what's fascinating about watching, and I've watched all of his snaps so far this season, that they run a clear 3-tier system, which I said the other day, which is the first is a very heavy RPO, which he doesn't run from. Second is outs, sort of 1, 2, and 3 routes, of which he always places the ball perfectly. And then third is just more classic drop back, hit the back of your drop, and then ping the ball all over the field. And he has a very, very strong arm. I mean, he made throw of the year to me, that sort of 50-yard hole shot down the field against Iowa. He's not athletic as such, you don't see him, but I think he's way more athletic than you see him, running around. He doesn't run around a lot, but I think he's got it in him. I think he takes too many sacks sometimes. He never panics in the pocket. I think he understands his responsibilities within the protection, which is really good. And he, as somebody said to me, he knows where the out button is, as in he can get the ball out of his hand quickly. He knows where to go with the ball when he needs to. Like I said, I think he takes too many sacks. But I just think, look, accuracy, rifle arm, poise, polish, timing, anticipatory throwing, and the ability to operate an offense at a high level of intelligence. I think that's what he does. And there's a Jared Goff, Carson Palmer, Joe Burrow kind of element to what he has. And I think if you're a team that's looking to operate an offense predicated on timing and rhythm and throwing from within the pocket and running your offensive concepts on schedule and in structure, I think he has a chance to be very, very good.
Yeah. You're in charge. You bypass 2027 and you take this one of these 2 quarterbacks in 2026?
It's the killer question. I don't think it's an amazing draft overall. Like, there's not. I think you can get a right tackle, and you don't have to get him in the first round. I think you can. It's great for receivers, and I think the Dolphins need receivers. But yeah, I mean, I think 2027 will be an amazing draft when you take in Antoine Knapp of Notre Dame, and Ryan Williams, and Colin Simmons, and Dylan Stewart, and Jeremiah Smith, and Leonard Moore at Notre Dame, and Jordan Seaton at Colorado, and Dylan Raiola and Sayin and OJ Frederick is going to be a really good player, and Aiden Banfield at North Carolina and Cam Coleman at Auburn. And there's some serious talent, and we haven't even mentioned, what if DJ Lagway goes somewhere or the coach comes in and he looks back like the freshman that he does, Lenora Sellers, Arch Manning. There is 2027 looks on paper like being an insanely good draft. But, I think if you feel good enough about a quarterback, then I think you take that quarterback. But if you're not convinced, then, I think it's not like the Dolphins are going anywhere, and they're going to have a quarterback next season anyway, because Tua is still going to be there unless like we said, unless they just drop the bomb. So if you're not convicted about one of them, I would just try and rebuild those lines, take Bain, take Woods, and really do a proper job of developing talent on those two lines, so that when you do bring in a quarterback, they're not just getting sacked the whole time, they're getting hit the whole time, and that actually they can build and grow behind Patrick Paul and behind whoever you got a right tackle, and knowing that Bain or Woods or Grant or Robinson or whatever are going to do the job as defensive linemen. And there's a lot of good. Anthony Smith in Minnesota, Tyreek Sapp in Florida. There's good early to mid round players on the defensive line that you can get. Pass rushers, whether that's David Bailey or Amela Height or Cassius Howell, or if Arvell Reese is another guy, where are you going to play Reese? Are you going to play him as an off-ball linebacker? To me, he's one of the top 5 players in the draft. Are you going to play him as a pass? I mean, he's an unbelievable pass rusher. So yeah, we'll see. It's fascinating. And I think if you're convicted on one, take him. But if you're not, then good quarterbacks are coming down the pipe.
Yeah. On the way out here, and we're done for the week, and we'll talk about this game on Monday, the results. You agree with me? My take on it's essentially like a Nick Bosa, Ruben Bain take, but all the dings that I see people giving Ruben Bain, they make no sense to me. Like I've explained this before. He's heavier than Nick Bosa coming out. Same pedigree down here, except one went to Central Public School and the other one went to St. Thomas Aquinas. God knows St. Thomas Aquinas wanted Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain had 77 sacks, in high school. A legend. Won the Nat Moore Award. Like I said, he's heavier than Nick Bosa coming out, more dense. And everybody that talks about arm length, it's only a 1/4 inch shorter than Nick Bosa's. And
Bosa was 6'3" and 3/4", 266 when he came out. Bain is listed at 6'3". He might be a bit smaller, 275. I think he's a really good player. I think he's one of the top 3 players, regardless of position, in the draft. Historically, you go back and look at his family history. He's from a family of footballers, football players. His grandfather was a 3-sport star at Northwestern. His father played D2 football at Morris Brown. He's. I think he struggled. The injuries thing, I think, has concerned people. He tore his MCL as a high school junior. Obviously, the calf issue last year. But and I don't think his body is he's not a natural. He's a bit unconventional. He almost looks like a defensive tackle. He's so thick so super thick in the lower half. But
he has a big booty, big thighs. You know what I mean?
But he's not as vascular. Such a good run. Yeah, he's such a good run player.
Yeah, he's not as vascular as Nick Bosa.
No,
but play style coming out, man. I see Nick Bosa. I really do.
Yeah, he's a very good player. But it's a very good group of edge rushers when you look at TJ Parker and Danny Denai Sutton and R. Mason Thomas and David Bailey and Howell and Yui Ungalale and Saka and Max Llewellyn of Iowa and stuff. So it's a hell of a class. But yeah, I think he's a real deal.
All right, we're gonna leave it right here. Try to enjoy this game on Sunday. I think you will. I think there's gonna be a lot of points. The only thing you're not gonna like, I think, is the final score. Okay. But try to enjoy the big plays. Try to enjoy Bijan Robinson's possible 200-yard game. Because God knows the following week, I don't know if you saw this, Simon, but you know who?
Yeah, Lamar's back in practice.
Yeah, you know who returned to practice today? Yeah. Limited today in practice, which means he's just going to be just fine. And with Derrick Henry in tow.
Yeah.
How fun is that going to be? All right, we're going to leave it right here. We'll try to talk about this game on Monday, but till then.